everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for a new edition of ESPN FC. I'm Alexis Nunes alongside Craig Burley and Shaka Hislop. Let's get straight into it, shall we? What possibly is the biggest transfer of this summer transfer window. Despite Shaka's best efforts, Alexander Isak signed for Liverpool. We heard from Newcastle yesterday. This is what Isak had to say. I want to express my gratitude to my teammates, the staff, and above all, the city of Newcastle, and all the amazing supporters for the 3 unforgettable years we shared together. Together, we have written history and brought the club to the place where it truly belongs. It has been an honor to be a part of the journey from reaching the Champions League to winning the first trophy in over 70 years. Forever grateful. Thank you, Newcastle. All right, well, for more on this, let's welcome in Yamal Fjortoft as well as Stewart Robson for this one. Craig, let me start with you, though.
Let's start with the hypocrite.
What?
Who's that?
Shaka. No.
What did I say? I just said that.
No. I mean, spare me the statements. Just spare me. Just go. Everybody knows how you've acted. Everybody knows what you wanted. Everybody knows what you have got. But spare us the sob story, because the Newcastle fans don't care. In fact, they'll despise him now. Am I right in saying that, Shaq?
Absolutely.
When he turns back up there for Liverpool, he is going to get it. Now, he probably won't care. Like most of us, we don't care if we get stick from opposing fans or former clubs. It's part and parcel. But spare me this statement that is going to sort of wash away some of the nonsense that he has been part of during the summer. He's got his move. He went about it all the wrong way, in my opinion. He was very unprofessional, but it forced the hand of both Liverpool and of Newcastle to allow him to go, because they eventually got the money, and the situation between them in terms of the relationship was broken. So I don't know about the rest of the boys. I don't want to hear this from players, to be honest with you, particularly ones that have worked their ticket to get out of a football club. So that's what he cares about, Newcastle, not what he said in this ridiculous statement.
I have a feeling I'll echo the sentiments of the other two gents on the panel, because we're from a similar era of this game where this was not a thing. That being said, all of a sudden, it has become, and players make statements. You saw Newcastle put out theirs yesterday, which is kind of very matter-of-factly, he's gone, thank you very much, goodbye. And Alexander Isak, and again, it's part and parcel of today's game. As statements go, it's not a bad statement, but to Craig's point, nobody of any interest or any who have paid any attention or are at all involved with Newcastle from a fan's perspective, or certainly a staff or management perspective, sees any value in this. You push this hard for a move, you stay away, you act as you do, you get the move. Don't try to sugarcoat it now. Nobody's falling for that at all.
Well, when I think of a true gentleman, I think of Stewart Robson. He would never do this, Robbo. What do you make of how it all went down and Isak's comments now after the fact?
Well, I don't like the comments. There's no point with the comments, because he's left. He's joined a new club, and get on with the new club. But I think everybody's got a little bit to blame here. Liverpool, first of all, they obviously sounded him out first of all, when they probably shouldn't have done. Isak then knew what they wanted him. He probably wanted to go. Well, he definitely wanted to go to Liverpool. He probably made it clear to Newcastle that he wanted to go. But I don't excuse Newcastle either. Newcastle, and I don't trust football clubs at all. Football clubs and loyalty, it's an absolute load of rubbish. They don't treat players particularly well. And I'd imagine Newcastle, when they knew that Isak was going to go, they wanted to get as big a fee for him as possible. He never actually went on strike. Newcastle and Eddie Howe said that he wasn't in the right frame of mind to join in with the other players. He never went on strike, which people keep saying he went on strike. He didn't go on strike. So I think Newcastle played a clever game. They always knew he was going to go. They kept on saying and turned the fans against him. He wasn't ready to play. His attitude wasn't quite right. All these sort of stuff. But they knew at the end of the day they were going to get all the money, and they were going to not be seen as a selling club. We just, in the end, couldn't keep hold of a player that wanted to go to Liverpool. That's how they've made it seem. And I think they've got a lot to blame as well for what's gone on.
I disagree here, Robbo. Isak left.
I'm sure you do.
Isak
because
left,
you
Isak left
played for
during
Newcastle,
pre-season.
you think football clubs are great.
Hold on. Isak left during pre-season to go and train with Sociedad. Is that a done thing? Is that a player acting normally? I don't understand.
Because Newcastle didn't want him to train with them. Because Newcastle wanted to get rid of him. They knew they wanted to get as much money as they possibly could.
Which is right. He's got 3 years to go.
Didn't allow him to train.
Which is
if you couldn't train with Newcastle,
Newcastle wanting as much money as they could get is their right. He's got 3 years left in a contract. That's why players and clubs sign contracts. No, I'm with you. 9 times out of 10, I'm with the player. I am not with the club. But how does a player signing a contract with still had 3 years to run?
Signed a 6-year deal.
Signed a 6-year deal. He had 3 years left to run. Goes off to train with Sociedad, his former club, while Newcastle are in pre-season. Eddie Howe tries to sugarcoat it. Eddie Howe tries to kind of deflect some of the blame. And all of a sudden, he's at fault, the club are at fault. Absolutely not. If you are determined to get your move today, then sign a short contract. Don't commit to 6 years. Sign 3.
We will later today.
You've never played at a club.
Go on, Robbo.
You've always been treated well by clubs. Clubs have never been disloyal to players. And that's what happens so many times. I've seen it over and over again. I've been in the situation as a player. I've been in the situation as a coach where we try to get rid of players and we try to turn it in our favour and say, well, the player wanted to go. When really we didn't want the player, but we didn't want the crowd. We wanted to get the crowd on his back. That's what happens in football clubs. And that's exactly what Eddie Howe and the Newcastle board did at the end, or when they realised they weren't going to be able to keep him, we'll turn the crowd against him.
Anyway, I don't think anybody really has come out of this smelling of roses, particularly the player. But welcome to the show, Jan Agapioto.
Jan, let's hear where you stand in this.
Well, it's an interesting discussion because we've seen the transfer window which is very special because, yes, we can discuss this. I was up in Newcastle. I had conversations with clubs. I had people in and around. Yeah, there was some reports that was wrong. For example, that Isak didn't come in to train. He come in to train but didn't train with the team. And there were different kind of reports. But what we've seen this window, we had Isak who wanted to force a move. Sorry, Robbo. We had Vissa who wanted to force a move. We had Martinez who didn't play the last game because he wanted to go to Manchester United. Things like that happened. They were all winning this transfer window. People like Gay at Crystal Palace and even Jürgen Strand Larsen, people thought that he didn't play because he faked the injury. Today he went home for the national team because he had the Achilles problem. He won't be with Norway for the 2 next game. So it's quite interesting. I'm with Stewart in the terms of sometimes we make it black or white. It's not even with Newcastle is black and white. We don't do that because you are 100% right. There are times when a club want players to go out. Then the fans will say, yeah, he's not good enough, so he should leave. We had in Germany Roman Weidenfeller, Shaka, the Dortmund keeper, been there for 100 years. He came in and suddenly had shirt number 49 or whatever. I mean, that happened all the time. What I don't like is this thing that, and I think that will be a big problem in the clubs if we're going to allow players to go to strike. Okay, we can define it, Robbo. But I mean, later today, we are talking about the best manager in the business, the best agent in the business, the manager of Jackson, who got him a deal now at Bayern Munich. But the agent of Isak, if you sign like a 100-year contract at Newcastle without the clause, and then 5 minutes later you want to leave the club, you haven't done a good job.
This is how conspiracy theories work. There's already some suggestions in the North East, and not just from, people online that really have half a brain cell, most of them. But, even from some journalists, when they look back, and I'm not suggesting this is true because I'm not into conspiracy theories, but they're even suggesting that Alexander Isak's form or desire and attitude towards the end of the season was not what it was at the start of the season because he felt that Newcastle's gaining entry into the Champions League was going to make it more difficult for him to actually leave. Whether that is true or not, I don't know. And I just think this whole thing has opened up this can of worms. And it's not the only one this year. We talked about it the other day. Vissa, I think, has had his issues at Brentford before his move. We saw Gyökeres go on the missing list at Sporting Lisbon, much to the irate of the president of Sporting Lisbon, who was sort of stamping his feet and swearing at Arsenal and everybody else. So it's whether Alexander Isak has done the things that have been suggested or not, this is a common theme now within the game, that players are tending to, and is it any coincidence they're all staying away? None of them are coming to the training. Players are now starting to force a move. And I agree with Robbo in a sense that clubs will just use you and abuse you. That's what football clubs do. They've always done it, and they always will. You're a commodity, and as soon as you're not a useful commodity, you're out the door. You're out the door. I mean, we see players with issues with doping and other stuff, and clubs won't sack them because there's no morals. They'll let them stay out their ban, and then they'll try and sell them because they're an asset to them. So when they're an asset, they will try and use you, and when you're a liability, they will just throw you to the wolves. So this thing goes on. The whole point is, it's been a bit of a mess from the start. Whoever's to blame, Liverpool, Newcastle, Eddie Howe, Isak, it's been a mess. The player has moved on. He is the villain in Newcastle's eyes. And let's see the most important thing here is, what can he do for Liverpool? Is he going to be the deal clincher between them lifting the title again and seeing off, which could be a very intense chase from Arsenal? Who knows? Is he going to be the difference along with Etiquette and one or two others? Or is he going to struggle at Liverpool under the weight of the pressure? That for me is going to be the interesting thing.
Here's the thing for me. I'm kind of going back to this contract situation. And while, listen, I have been subject to football politics as much as anybody. I've had my issues. I think what you see, and which Jan raised and Craig touched on, with players kind of going missing. Let's just call it that, to force a move. Gyökeres, good example, comes out with a ridiculous statement today saying that when players want to move, they can't do anything. Clubs hold the power. No, I disagree. Whenever a club might want to get rid of a player and take actions to get rid of that player, but if they can't, they have to keep paying that player. Jadon Sancho is a perfect example. Manchester United have been trying to ship him out for years, and they can't. And he can turn down loan moves. He can accept loan moves. They have to keep paying him, at least until his contract runs out, and then that's the end. I think what you will see now, and kind of given the examples, the high-profile examples of going back to, I remember the pre-Bosman ruling days, pre-1998, where the clubs held all the power, and that was taken to court, and there's been a shift. Now kind of looking at how, at the very least, this summer has played out, players, even under contract, are now holding a certain amount of power, because finding a player 2 weeks' wages in today's game makes absolutely no difference. It has no impact at all. So now, if I'm running a football club and I'm signing a big name player or spending a lot of money on a player, there'll be clauses in there about their actions if they stay away, their actions if they don't show up for training or they're unexcused, that will put the power back in my hands. So either clubs take that responsibility up themselves, or the league or the law courts need to do something.
You go back to that Bosman ruling, which changed the whole face of how players were treated and how players came and went under the European Union and under European law of I don't know exactly what the terminology is, but employment rights. And when your contract used to finish, as the boys will all know, your contract was up at a club, the club still held your registration. Yeah. And the Bosman ruling changed that. And for example, yesterday we saw a scenario with Mark Gay possibly going to Liverpool. And this is the sort of juxtaposition that players, clubs and managers are in. Mark Gay, one of the best defenders in the Premier League, certainly one of Palace's best players, has 1 year left in his contract. Crystal Palace are sitting on 35 million, but Oliver Glasner's saying, I'm going to walk out here. If you don't get me a replacement and you sell Mark Gay, I'm going to walk out. So the player has certain amounts of power now. The trouble is, when you sign a 6-year contract with no get-out clause, as Alexander Isak did, it can become as messy as it has.
Right, well, we're going to press on now because I haven't seen Shaka this fired up since they stopped serving soup at the cafeteria here on Sundays. Robbo, I'm going to come to you now because Craig brought it up. The next question is for Liverpool. How does Alexander Isak fit into their tactics, fit into Arne Slot's 11? Walk us through how you see him fitting into the 11.
Well, if you've just paid 125 million for a player, you've got to play him in the position that he wants to play. So he would be the out-and-out centre forward, I would say. They need more from Wirtz playing in behind him. He hasn't really got going so far. I would stick with Gakpo on the left-hand side and Salah on the right-hand side, and that midfielder McAllister and Gravenberch. But Isak will be the out-and-out striker. He's the player that can run in behind, he can hold up the play when he needs to, he can be clever with his movement. But is he the, finished product? Is he the player that everybody says he is at £125 million? I'm not sure he is. We saw him at Real Sociedad on many, many occasions, Craig as well, when we do La Liga. And you say, yeah, a good striker, he's got a little bit of pace, but you would never have said that in 3 years' time or two and a half years' time, he'd be going to Liverpool for £125 million. He's still got a lot to prove, I would say.
So that begs the question, Jan. Ekitike comes in after that really good spell at Frankfurt, after his bad spell at PSG. He's looked lively. I mean, he didn't have a great game at the weekend, but both strikers, Gyökeres and him, were really isolated. But he's looked sharp early on, particularly in the Community Shield and the game against Bournemouth and so forth. Did you see him in Germany do anything else but play through the middle? Or has he got some flexibility there that Arne Slot can utilise?
Yes, he has, Craig, and it's a good question because Ekitike, he played that in Frankfurt as well, because when he had Marmoush there, he had to play differently. Remember, Eintracht Frankfurt last January lost Marmoush in January. That is point one. And point two, remember back in the days when Liverpool and Newcastle tried both to get Ekitike, and people thought that if Ekitike goes to Newcastle, Liverpool will get Isak earlier. And now we find themselves in the same club. And if, boys, I'm not sure about you, but I would say those are the two strikers who are most similar in the top leagues, Ekitike and Isak, which is interesting. And I think that it talks a bit about the confidence of Liverpool, but also the confidence of Slot, that he feels he can manage them. I think he can, because he showed that last season. So I think that if you're gonna say someone else is the favorite to win the Premier League now, you have to be very early up in the morning, because you need to argue good.
I mean, it's interesting because it is a big call for Arne Slot, because, Gakpo, I like Gakpo. I think a lot of people like him. I think Slot, he's done a really good job on that left-hand side. He's not obviously an out-and-out winger like Salah on the other side. He likes to drift in. He's great at getting in at the back post for balls in, for headers and goal scoring at that back post. He's very adept at that. He's very physical. He can also drop back in the midfield and do a job there because of his physicality. So it is a big call for Arne Slot, because that's a facet of the team that's worked particularly well. I'm not suggesting Ekitike wouldn't go out there and do a good job. He's a different type of player to Gakpo. He's more of a goal scorer. He's more of a front man. Gakpo's a little bit of a hybrid between the middle of the park and the wide position. So that's going to be a big call. Look, they say you can never have too many good players, but I think managing them sometimes and trying to shoehorn them into the team is the difficult part. And I think it's going to be a lot more difficult for Arne Slot this year than last year. Last year, it was just momentum, and maybe that was why towards the end of the season, the Champions League and the Premier League, they sort of fell off a cliff a little bit. They'd already done the hard work. They'd won the league, but their performances dipped. And I think that was potentially because a lot of the players had played a lot of games. So he maybe didn't have that problem last year in terms of rotating as much. He's going to have that to deal with. He's going to have more decisions to make this year on a weekly basis about who plays, who starts, and where they start. And that's a different type of headache, because he pretty much put that side in the first 6 months of the season last year when they were brilliant. He pretty much put the 11 out and went, right, lads, on you go. And they did a great job for him. This year, with all the signings, it's a different headache.
And while he was able to put out that 11 fairly consistently last season, injuries didn't have a significant impact in Liverpool's title run last season. No manager just kind of relies on where we're going to be fit throughout. We are going to be able to call on the same 11 or same 15 or whatever it may be all season long. So I think Liverpool and Arne Slot have done a very good job in certainly bolstering the squad and giving significant option in every single position. Now, I for one, I don't see Ekitike drifting out to the left-hand side. Maybe he can go there and pick up a ball or two, but to start him out to the left, I don't see it. I think he was signed always with the intention of playing through the middle and more as support, more as an option for Alexander Isak, as Liverpool expected to get him earlier in the summer. But then all of a sudden, he just started the season like a house on fire.
Yeah.
And that's credit to the player himself. And that's, I guess, as a manager, those are the problems you want to have, where even your long-term prospect, the player who you expect is just going to come in and maybe be a bit part player for the first season, starts off in the way that he does. And now Slot really has a decision.
Well, and he sat at home. And he sat at home, Ekitike. And, it's a bit like James Trafford at Manchester City. Just signed Donnarumma. OK, had a bad game against Tottenham with his feet. He did very well in the Brighton game. I know they lost. But he's gone back in there as the number one. They've just gone and blown that out of the water by Donnarumma. So his chin's on the floor. And here you have a guy who's come in, looked lively, looked great, scored goals. And they spend the best part of 150 million on a striker, which I'm sure he was aware was going to happen. But it doesn't make it any easier, particularly when you've started the season as well as he has. And I'm sure Andy Slot's talked to him about his plans and what he's going to do. But plans get chucked out.
He should go on strike.
All right, let's not go on strike. But Jan, let me come to you on this one now, because both you and Shaka had Florian Wirtz to win Player of the Year when we got our early Premier League season predictions. And now there are lots of questions surrounding him. Are you surprised that he's struggling earlier on in Liverpool?
What about, first of all, in 2025, we have to define in the beginning. If you don't score in the first game, you're a flop. Florian Wirtz, that is how it is. When you come in as a big time player, you need time to adjust. I read a great interview with him in the German press where he talked about he loves to be at the club. He loves to be at the training ground. He loves to be a part of the Liverpool, the way Slot is planning for him. That takes time. You have Ekitike who goes straight in. Maybe easier for a striker, because if you get your goal, everybody is happy. Has Florian Wirtz looked like Florian Wirtz has done in Leverkusen? No, he hasn't. I think he was okay in the second half against Arsenal. He will float in, but I still, although I changed my Player of the Year because I was influenced by the power ranking of Xhaka today.
You know not to trust those.
No, but Florian Wirtz, I think that of all the players they got in a longer perspective, talking 2-3 years down the road, he will maybe be one of the best and most important signings Liverpool have done.
Shaka, are you changing your mind, or are you sticking with Wirtz?
No, I've changed my mind.
Oh, how
I told you.
In full disclosure,
that's what I meant.
My power rankings were based off of Jan's recommendation. So that's what happened. Now listen,
you're changing your mind already.
No, just on Player of the Year. No, not whether he'll be a success this season. I think he grows into that position. I have little doubt that he kind of grows into that position for Liverpool.
But not enough to shine to become Player of the Year.
Yeah, but I'm thinking I'm with Jan that over the next 2 or 3 years, Florian Wirtz will prove himself to be an outstanding acquisition. There's no doubt. And probably in 2 or 3 weeks' time. It's just as you look at this Liverpool team, as it develops, he'll contribute significantly, just not Player of the Year significantly.
Robbo, you had him, of course, in your 11. Do you have the similar faith that he will grow into life at Liverpool, but probably not necessarily to become Player of the Year?
Yeah, I think he's an exceptional player, and what he is very, very good at is playing in tight areas. Not all Liverpool players are good at playing in tight areas. They've got pace to run. Isak's a player that likes to run in behind. Salah, I had a bit of a row with Rob Palmer at the weekend because he said he's a player that likes to get the ball to his feet. But again, Salah likes running in behind. It's his pace that causes so many problems. Now, when Liverpool play against teams that want to sit deep in the penalty box and not give too much space away, Florian Wirtz is the player that can open them up with clever 1-2s, great manipulation of the ball. That's what he did for Bayer Leverkusen. When teams wanted to sit deep, that's when he came to the fore, because that's when you have to break teams down. And he did that persistently. And I think he'll do it for Liverpool in those games where teams want to sit deep and make it difficult for them.
That was Robbo's weekly argument with Rob Palmer.
Robbo's all for the argument.
I mean, Rob always have a little disagreement, and the cup it's very enjoyable, I have to say. I actually don't think the big concern here, and it is very early, I mean extremely early, but he's a superstar. And so people look at you when you're a superstar and you're such a big signing. I don't think there's any worries about what Florian Wirtz will do with the ball and contribute to Liverpool and pick those little passes out and those assists and those wonderful runs that we've seen him go on for Leverkusen. I think one of the questions for me is how is it going to, over the long term, affect the shape of the Liverpool midfield in terms of a defensive structure? And I think we saw at times in that first half against Arsenal, with Arsenal's easy possession, although they did very little with it, but that I think was down to personnel on the field, because they had three very similar midfielders in Rice, Moreno and Zubamendi, who can all sort of pass the ball. But their easy possession, I think, threw up a few questions about the balance in the Liverpool midfield. And I think that's probably a bigger, I think worry or concern's maybe not the right terminology, but a bigger question about how it's all going to work for Liverpool. Because the last couple of years has been, Szoboszlai, Gravenberch, McAllister, rock solid. Absolutely rock solid. And before that was Curtis Jones. Now the dynamic of that midfield three has changed, because yes, he'll work hard, and yes, he's got a great attitude, but he isn't an out-and-out midfielder. He isn't the most physical player. It isn't a natural instinct for him. And so that automatically puts a little bit more pressure on the other midfielders. And I think that's more of a question for me, rather than will he be the player to unlock a defence, which I think he's already proven.
Craig, don't you think that is an interesting discussion? Because it's like you are two camps of spins. Because we saw the first game against Arsenal, they didn't concede so many chances, but the three other games they conceded a lot of chances. So there was, like, when the football discussion on different channels or people in and around the game, there was one direction saying that Van Dijk and Konate doesn't look that good, and then there was the other camp saying, yeah, but that's the defense problem is because of Wirtz, because he makes that balance that you were talking about, Craig. I think that is an interesting thing to follow into this season. I can see that's the only weakness of Liverpool, and we'll see. But I feel like there are two camps. So when people keep criticizing Van Dijk, then they will say, yeah, but that's because the midfield is not that good. So it's going to be interesting to follow that.
Well, Robbo, Arsenal at the weekend just lost to Liverpool, which was thanks to a fantastic strike from Szoboszlai. But still, we had a bit of a debate on the show with our Julian Laurent, saying that he actually enjoyed the tactics that were employed by both sides in this team. Our Stevie Nicol rubbished that and said that was absolute nonsense because he was bored for the most part. How did you find the game? What did you make of Arsenal's approach?
Arsenal made it difficult for Liverpool first half, so tactically, in terms of stopping Liverpool playing, silencing the crowd, making Liverpool not play at the pace they usually play at, and making Liverpool look very average. They did that well with their closing down. They always went with the front two at times and made it difficult. But as I always said, when they bought Zubamendi, that he's a player that won't pick a forward pass. They hit one in behind for Madueke, which was a good one, where Madueke beat Kerkez for pace. But in the main, every time the ball comes to Zubamendi, he will pass it backwards or square. And when Declan Rice goes deep, which he did in that game, he passed it backwards and square. He's much better when he's a more dynamic player. Moreno, likewise, he's not a player that you think is going to pick out a 30, 40-yard pass. The only player that really, I thought, looked as though he was exciting was Madueke, who the Arsenal crowd didn't want when he was signed. He looks as though he had a bit of pace to go past Zirkic in that first Kerkic in that first half. But overall, I thought they were a little bit scared of the game. They were clear that they wanted to stop Liverpool playing, but they didn't have the next step to cause Liverpool too many problems.
Just didn't have the guile for all their possession in the first half, or their gain of control, which they had in the first 45. They didn't, and I agree, Madueke looked sharp, and he had Kerkez at full pelt on several occasions. I mean, Martinelli on the other side was a non-event, and he and that's Stevie and I talked about it. He should have been the one that Arsenal were isolating, because he's against Szoboszlai, experienced player, international footballer, captain of his country, but he ain't a right back. And Martinelli's supposed to be one of the quickest wide players, most direct wide players in the game, and yet he saw very little of the ball. It just didn't make any sense. And I do feel that and Arne Slot made the move first with his substitutions, and I actually felt it was Arsenal that should have made the substitutions earlier, because the game was getting away from them before he brought on Eze. It was already getting away from him. I felt he should have moved a little bit earlier. But in the first half, the fact that they couldn't, when they did penetrate the Liverpool midfield, they really didn't have anything with any guile or quality into, and Gyökeres again got very little service, and it's not been a good look on him. Jan?
And I think that the big discussion about Arsenal is the big thing. You can see what Arteta tries to do. You can see that he looks for a percentage here, 1% here, 1% to improve his team. I think the big discussion is, yes, if you're data-driven, you will say that throw-ins are very important because so many goals will score. Set pieces are important, so. Take your time. That's good for our away game, and so on. Yes, the kickoff is just kicked out in the corner so you can start the pressure. Yes, I know PSG did the same in the Champions League, but they have other attributes. The thing that I think is interesting with Arsenal is that will that be a cost of what has made Arsenal so good the last 2-3 seasons? And they have been good. They've been second 3 times in a row. They've been very close to do that. I'm just a bit afraid that Arsenal, by doing all this stuff, that they try to improve all these areas, the small things here, the small things there, which is the right approach to so. But I'm afraid that they will lose what Arsenal has done so well. The quick transition, going forward, going for it, 1 against 1. Saka, Ødegaard, get in. I'm not sure about that strategy.
Well, he's got to get his hamstrings right, isn't he, Saka?
Yeah, I take Jan's point.
That's a worry.
Saka certainly is a huge miss for Arsenal. But in all honesty, this is what Arteta has done against the big teams in the Premier League for the last couple of seasons. And he's got an outstanding record in that regard. Where it's come unstuck for Arsenal is, I think they've picked up just too many draws, maybe relying on set pieces, and now the addition of Gyökeres maybe gives them that little nudge that they need in terms of those points dropped against teams lower down in the league. But certainly, in terms of the Liverpools, the Manchester Cities of this league, this is what I've come to expect from Arteta. This is nothing different. The only difference was Szoboszlai stepping up in the manner that he did. But this has been Arsenal's approach pretty consistently for the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, and it's been unsuccessful.
Yeah.
It's been unsuccessful.
Well, it's successful in league, but not in the individual games.
But 1 second, it's been unsuccessful, and we can butter this up anyway. I'm data-driven. Who wins the Premier League? Who finishes second? That's the only data I care about. One second, Jan. We can butter. If Mikel Merino, Declan Rice and Zubimendi play and Arsenal win, nobody cares. Nobody bats an eyelid. If Martinelli doesn't play well and Arsenal win, nobody bats an eyelid. Right? The problem here is, and we can go round the houses about who plays and set pieces, the bottom line here is, Arsenal Football Club have given Mikel Arteta what he wants to win the league and to succeed. Now, it's his choice what he does with it. If he wants to play Eze, fine. If he doesn't want to play Eze, if he wants to play 3 big guys in the midfield, I don't care. That's what he's going to be judged on. He has got the tools now. There's no excuses. He has the tools to do this job. So Mikel Arteta is a man that's under pressure. He can't go and say, I don't have the squad. I don't have the backup for Saka. I don't have a backup on the left-hand side. I don't have extra defenders. Because he's got absolutely everything he wanted, and he wanted Gyökeres. He's got everything he wanted to win this league, and that is the crux of where he is at.
And Craig, that's what I want to ask, and I think this is an interesting discussion because, to your point, Shaka, that's what I mean. I understand when you go to Manchester City. I understand when you go to Anfield. It's a main thing not to let them win. That's fair. You don't want to give 3. We share the points. We 1 point each. We are okay. But I'm just wondering if you're going to win the league, you have to risk something. You have to risk, and you can have the chance then when you play against the weaker teams. Sometimes if you rely on the set pieces you were talking about, Shaka. I was at St James's Park. I saw an intense game. I saw Newcastle also with 10 players. Giants. They all look like Norwegian Vikings. They were the tallest people in the world. They were pushing Liverpool. In the 96th minute, Arne Slot put on Elliott and Rio. He didn't go there to secure that point. He went for it with 2 small players came in. They won 3-2. I'm not saying that he could have lost. He could have lost that game. He could have lost the set pieces on 2-2. Newcastle wanted to win the game. But I'm just wondering, where is the balance between balance thing? Where is the data-driven things compared with you have to risk to win? That's my question.
All right, well, we're going to have to press on quickly because we have to talk about Barcelona. But before we do, come for the tactical breakdown. Stay for the bands. ESPN FC, we are on 7 days a week on ESPN+. All right, let's head to Spain now. Have a look at the sport newspaper. Los egos matan el éxito. That means egos kill success. That is Hansi Flick speaking after the 1-1 draw with Rayo Vallecano at the weekend. Well, Lamine Yamal had a thing or two to say after that as well. He says, look, I think it has more to do with the fact that we didn't start the season with the intensity we had at the end of the previous one than with egos in the dressing room. After a draw, you come out of it hot. In the end, you have to win. He is right that we made a lot of mistakes, but it can happen. We have to get back to our level as soon as possible. Craig, you and I did this game, followed it closely. What do you make of this little back and forth with
Hansi Flick is well known as being, and if you ask our colleague Jurgen Klinsmann, he's well known as being a very good man manager, a very good talker to the players. And managing egos. He did it at Bayern Munich. Don't forget when he went in off the back of Niko Kovac, who was a disaster and who had sort of, sent a lot of the senior players like Thomas Muller and a few more to the sidelines. Hansi Flick went in and sort of rescued that. Kind of similar with Xavi when, there was a few, Lewandowski and others were not particularly happy with Xavi. He goes in, he gets everybody on side, and I think he's just firing a warning shot across the bows here. But what we have seen, because there are some big egos and some big young egos, and Lamine Yamal is one of them, and he's turned 18 now and he's in the spotlight and he might be out in the town a little bit more, enjoying himself, and it's a different scenario for Hansi Flick to manage. But what we've seen in the first couple of games of the La Liga season, and we cover it every week, and Robbo does the commentary on it every week as well, and we talked last year, and Barcelona fans, they're going to hate this, but we have to talk about this high line because it gave them some sort of success last year, but at considerable risk. But the unit last year worked reasonably well as a unit. But was it because it was a good unit, or was it because opposing teams were not bright enough and clever enough to figure it out?
Listen, given Hansi Flick's success, who am I to criticize at this point? I think there are far better ways to set up a defense. That being said, and just kind of talking about Hansi Flick's statement here, when I first read this, the first thing I started to wonder was what individual or individuals was this aimed at? But the more kind of thought about it, I wonder is, to use Freg's terminology, is Hansi Flick firing a shot across the bow of the entire team. Yeah. Now, you come in and you're La Liga champions, you've unseat Real Madrid, who were league and European champions the season before, and now all of a sudden, you think you've got this all figured out. And I wonder if it's Hansi Flick is saying to this team, what we did last year doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't count for anything this time around. So unless we kind of figure that out really quickly, we will lose control of our own destiny in this league. And similarly, while Lamine Yamal has become the face of Barcelona Football Club, even at 18, I thought his response was a good one, was as level-headed and as mature as you could expect. But Hansi Flick is absolutely right to be calling individuals and the team out for what has been an uncertain start. It could be a whole lot worse, I take it, but a start that could be a whole lot better from Barcelona.
Well, they got away with that Levante one. I mean, that game, Rashford started, Rafinha played inside. He hooked Rashford at half-time. Rafinha went back to the wide position. Frankie de Jong come on from Marc Casado. And they churned it out with the old tactic of, we're going to score more than you. He knows that from Newcastle, Kevin Keegan. We'll outscore you. And in some sense, that worked for them last year and was very exciting. Of course it was. But has that got longevity? Hansi Flick admitted it after the game. He went, we'll take a point. We'll take a point. What I don't understand is, last year we watched the likes of Bayern Munich, Real Madrid and others unable to figure out how to beat this offside trap properly. And it was a real head-scratcher because Barcelona fans were saying, it's such a good offside trap. It's brilliant. It's unbeatable. It is not. That's baloney. Rayo Vallecano, who have a record transfer of $8 million and pay their players a pittance of what the big stars get, understood what it took to beat this high line. It was good early balls in behind and runners from deep. But yet we witnessed Real Madrid, Kylian Mbappe, Bayern Munich in the Champions League, and many others fail to understand how to beat this offside trap. And my point being is, when these big teams finally figure it out with this kind of shoddy defending, is that going to be enough to take Barcelona to another La Liga title and to a Champions League win by saying, well, Rafinha will outscore, Lamine Yamal will outscore, and Lewandowski, even these mid-30s, will just keep going. That is a big ask of your front line to take the pressure off a dodgy back line, which it has been for the first couple of games of this La Liga season.
Robert, you know, we've been talking about Barcelona's high line for a long time now, and we had Mario Suarez on the show, and he said the difference between last season and this season is that now people just need time. Teams just need time. Eventually, they're going to start figuring it out. And what we saw from the likes of Levante and especially Rayo Vallecano, have they just given us the perfect blueprint now to deal with Barcelona? And do you see, to Craig's point, bigger teams like a Real Madrid or a Bayern Munich, I guess, eventually employing that tactic?
Well, it's an obvious tactic they have to play, and I'm shocked that teams didn't do it last year, because Barcelona at times, you know, everything was wrong about their high line. They got away with it time and time again, and there was a millimetre offside. The opposition would have 5 1v1s against the goalkeeper and not make them, or they'd get just that fraction offside. You have to play balls on the diagonal, you time your runs. You don't have to run before the ball's played. You can wait till the ball being played, because Barcelona aren't just allowing people to run in behind them, they're actually stepping up so it's much easier for people to run in behind them. But I'm interested in why he mentioned egos. Is he talking about egos in the dressing room, or is he talking about egos on the field? Because if he's talking about egos on the field, it means that 1 or 2 of the players aren't doing what they're being asked to do. And maybe that's why the high line isn't working for him, because he took Kabasi and Araujo out the side at the weekend. Was that because he wasn't sure that they'd got it quite right, and their egos out on the pitch? They might have argued with 1 or 2 of the tactics. Are 1 or 2 of the other players arguing with the tactics now? Are they saying that this isn't going to work year after year? We've got to change it slightly. And that's where his argument might be with the players, rather than the ego where we think it's something that's happened off the field.
It's interesting, Robbo, after the game, Sid Lowe interviewed Frankie de Jong. And I don't know if you're aware, but VAR wasn't working during most of this game. They had a technical issue. And so Frankie de Jong said, actually, he said, that was a little bit of a problem for us. Because Sid said to him, you know, how did that affect the players? And he said, Frankie de Jong, I thought it was really interesting. He said, it really started to worry us because our high line, we know we're talking about inches or millimetres.
Yeah.
And I sort of sat back and gasped and thought, wow. So when you're thinking about, we need the technology in because we're catching people off with a big toe here. And when you think about that, in the cold light of day, that is some serious risk-taking. The fact that they're thinking we need this technology because all our calls are very, very close. That's telling me that is too much risk. Now, I hear the Barca fans. We won La Liga, we won the Super Cup, we won the Cup, we did all that. I get it. The big question is, and it was fun to watch, and it was entertaining. The big question is, and we've touched on it, is what's the longevity of it when it starts to unravel, which it really didn't last year. But as Robbo said, and I said, it should have. If people had been a bit clever, a bit cuter, made better runs and timed their passes better, which isn't as difficult as people make it. Go on, Stewart.
Just a quick one, Craig. When Hansi Flick was at Bayern Munich, they played exactly the same high offside line, and it worked a treat for a year. He then became the German manager. And maybe better players, teams saw what was going on. The German team didn't work quite so hard at it because they weren't with Hansi Flick quite so often. And it was a disaster. And he didn't do particularly well there. So there's been a case where it's failed for him. It's been successful for him on more occasions than it's failed. But there was a time when it failed for him with the German national team. And he's got to be careful it doesn't fail in this second season at Barcelona.
Well, Hansi Flick now has a little bit of a breather to sort things out at Barcelona as we enter the international break. But La Liga will be back on ESPN the weekend of September 12. You see Barcelona there. They will be playing on Sunday up against Valencia, and that is going to be an enticing matchup. All right, let's have a look at the Bayern Munich transfers that we saw. Players coming in like Jonathan Tah, as well as Luis Diaz from Liverpool. And then On deadline day, it was the one that nobody had on their bingo card. Nicolas Jackson on loan from Chelsea. It's a 16 million euro loan, but with an obligation to buy. So we're talking about a potential total package of around 81 million euros for Nicolas Jackson. Jan, you know I'm going to have to come to you on this one, because for all the talk that we talk about how transfers and business are done in Germany, especially at Bayern, how they want to do it the more responsible way, not the way that we usually see clubs from the Premier League do business. What on earth are they doing, spending this much on Nicolas Jackson?
Yeah, we didn't have it on his bingo card, but he was on the plane going to Munich, and then he was told that he had to go back because of Delap's injury, and then he was staying. So it's been a funny kind of transfer window for Bayern. Eberl then, he wanted another player in because Coman went to Saudis. He wanted a winger in. Then certainly Uli Hoeneß went down from his big balcony and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, we have to take a player on loan." And then Eberl thought, whoa, I have to change my strategy here. So, but what he's done now, it's quite, I would say, a bit funny, again, because he has then taken a player in with a loan of 16 million euro. It's not long ago, that was a great signing of a player. And there's a package of a player who isn't scoring too many goals. I think, and that's my opinion, that the jury is still out on Jackson, how good he really is. Having said that, to be the devil's advocate on Max Eberl, it's quite hard to find a player who you will tell, listen, you have to be as good as you can play for Bayern. Secondly, when you come to Bayern, you won't play a lot because Harry Kane will be the striker. Diaz will always play on the left side. So you won't play a lot. So it's been a difficult challenge also for Max Eberl. But I'm not sure about this. I am not sure about Bayern, what Bayern is doing. I'm not sure about their strategy. I am not sure about the consequences of their strategy. It's been just, and I end where I start, it's just been a funny transfer window for them.
Let me ask you a question, Jan, because we touched on this yesterday. And maybe you can clear this up for me. I don't know. Did Thomas Müller want to leave Bayern Munich, or would he have stayed for an extra season to help out?
Thomas Müller would have stayed in Munich for 60 years more if he wanted. He was desperate.
Right.
He's training today with them, Craig. He got more farewell parties than any. I know. He's there. He loves it. He's over there now at the break, and he's training with him. And he went in. Now I'll say how it was. He went into Max Eberl, and he didn't know what they would do. Would they offer him another year, or would they say, this is it? He thought they will offer him a contract, maybe lower than he had, and he would have probably said yes because he loves his club. So he would have stayed on. That is 100% sure. Right. They let him go, and since then they're been a bit in turmoil what they want to do.
See, that's my point. That's my point here. And I know you don't always have a crystal ball if you're a sporting director, but you know this obscene potential amount of money on an average player who shouldn't be at Bayern Munich. He's third choice at Chelsea. My point being with this is have a bit of foresight. It's a difficult market out there. There's a lot of clubs fighting for the big players. I'm taking Thomas Müller at his age, blindfolded on one leg, over Nicolas Jackson. And yet here they let this player go and bring in and spend ridiculous amounts of money on a guy who's not good enough at Chelsea, and he's certainly not good enough for Bayern to sit on the bench and support Harry Kane. That's what I don't understand, is that sort of scenario, but that's just me.
Well, Jan, one bit of business that I think you do probably agree with, if my spidey senses are correct, is the fact that Leverkusen have sacked Erik ten Hag. Oh, and there's a little bit of a blame game there. Of course, some do sympathize with ten Hag, considering that squad that won the Bundesliga title a few years ago has been absolutely decimated. But tell us all about this. What do you think?
Well, a quick explainer. So Xabi Alonso is successful via Leverkusen. He makes them into a winning team, winning the double. They didn't have a good season last season, but enough for Xabi Alonso to go to Real Madrid. So any coach coming after Xabi Alonso, people will ask, is his name Xabi Alonso? No, it's Erik ten Hag or is whatever. And they will say, yeah, it's the wrong choice. So it's tough to come after Xabi Alonso. But then we thought that they will go for the same kind of coach. So Fabregas was one of the candidates. Xavi was one of the candidates. There was a lot of candidates going. Then they ending up on Erik ten Hag. okay, the summer comes, Simon Rolfes and Caro at Leverkusen, they take out all the key players. I mean, Wirtz and Frimpong we knew about, suddenly Xhaka is gone. Tah was on free transfer, Radetzky, the goalkeeper's gone. So then we thought, okay, they put Erik ten Hag in there to kind of make that transition. He knows German football. He's been a coach at Bayern Munich when Pep Guardiola was there. He will know. But what we've seen lately, I mean, this is for us. I remember the 44 days of Brian Clough in Leeds. That was the famous thing. Erik ten Hag comes in as a former Manchester United and Ajax coach. I mean, this is embarrassing. And also when you saw this weekend, they lost. They played. There was 3-3 against Werder Bremen, 3-1 up with a man more on the pitch. And Andrich, the newly captain, he said, "Who is to blame? Is it the coach or you, the players?" And he said, "I guess it's both." I mean, in Germany, to say that is then you're gone. And Simon Rolfes, I've been thinking all day long, is he very brave to what he's doing to say, okay, I admit that was a mistake to give it to him, or is it a wise management move to say it's so wrong we have to turn it around straight away? I'm not 100% sure.
Well, Erik ten Hag is gone, but the Bundesliga will be back on ESPN after the international break. Leverkusen will be in action on September 12th, 2 p.m. Eastern Time on ESPN+. All right, welcome into Extra Time.
What we got?
All right, well, the first question from James.
Well, you need to shape up after that extra time the other day.
Oh, which one?
The one where you were on a waffle fest.
I was only doing it to
And it worked.
bother you. It did. It did. I was keeping Craig in later than he wanted to.
Craig?
Huh?
Have you never seen her present before then?
Wow! How did this turn into a little bully segment for me,
When I was in London at the Community Shield, I had to tell her to
That
stop.
was once.
We were the only broadcaster. Oh, God. LeBouf, Anuha and Burley were the only three stood at the pitch side at Wembley because you were still waffling on here.
Listen, I only follow instructions from
They
our
locked it,
producers.
there was no, we couldn't get out the stadium, they'd locked it up.
Well, that's normal. That's normal.
I would like to comment, but it's not live, so I won't say anything.
Oh, see? All right, let's.
Anyway.
In the spirit of not waffling,
This is live.
let me go to Robbo on this
Unless you
one.
watch it.
Robbo, should Mark Gay have acted like Alexander Isak to get his move?
No, because
What?
that's not the right way to act if you try and go on strike. But I don't think Isak did try and go on strike. He wanted to go to Liverpool and he wanted to get his move. And Newcastle and Isak fell out, and I don't think Newcastle handled it particularly well, apart from getting the money they wanted in the end, which was 125 million. So I think he did everything right at Crystal Palace, and he was right to stay there in the end. He probably wanted to go, but he's staying there. He'll do a good job for him another year, and he'll probably get his move next season.
I think it's interesting this window to see. I mean, I think on the show we decided to make a compromise that the players stayed away and not call it a strike, or they didn't come in. But it's interesting. It seems like the bad boys, they were rewarded, and the good boys, they had to stay at the club. I'm talking about Strand Larsen. I'm talking about Gay. Now I can't talk anymore. The SL got his move. Being kind, by the way.
Somebody
Killed
said-
my theory.
I read earlier, right or wrong, that Mark Gay is extremely dissatisfied and unhappy that the move fell through, and that, you know, we talked about it on the show, players making statements, and he's going to make a statement tomorrow for whatever worth that is, because the transfer window is closed now. But apparently he is extremely annoyed about how it was all handled in the end. So.
I also read somewhere that he prepared a goodbye video or something of the sort, which again just kind of speaks to how the game has gone. Back in the day, at best you would come in and say goodbye to a couple of lads, but and you leave.
Back in the days, we didn't have a camera.
Yeah, that's probably for the best, Jan. Probably for the best.
There's no probably.
True. Also true. Thank God.
The game's gone. The game's gone.
Yeah, when Craig left, Yeah, when Craig left his clubs, he went back to shake with one or two of the friends that he knew, but nobody wanted to shake his hand. He had no friends at the club.
What's wrong with him tonight?
Robbo, his teammates made a farewell video for him.
What they did to him, they were having a day off, and he went in to shake their hands and they had a day off.
Yeah. Keep going. Keep going. More. More insults.
Not the teammates making a farewell video.
They had a farewell party and Craig wasn't invited.
We could just stay here all day.
Hey, don't blame me. Don't encourage them. I'm just laughing.
I'm just laughing.
I love it. I'll be honest. I love when people pick on me. It's great. People take it too serious.
Jan is in fine form today. Fine form.
His teammates made a farewell video.
He said the club made a farewell video.
Good riddance.
Good riddance.
I'm crying.
Good riddance.
Oh, God, you'll have me crying.
As we try to compose ourselves, the next question is for Robbo. Robbo, Arsenal spent months deciding between Šeško and Gyökeres. But Ekitike, aka Baby Thierry Henry, seems like the perfect profile for Arsenal. Did they buy the wrong number 9?
Only time will tell. I mean, Ekitike is got different qualities, I think, to Gyökeres. Gyökeres, I think, is probably a better goal scorer. He's probably a better box player. Ekitike's got that little bit of pace. He can run with the ball. And as Jan said a bit earlier, I think he can play in one or two different positions, whereas Gyökeres is an out-and-out centre forward. Still to see what Šeško has got. I never really saw it when he was playing in Germany. I mean, he had one or two good games. But of the three, at the moment, Ekitike looks the best signing.
Xhaka, next question's for you. How are you feeling today if you're James Trafford and you just turned down a move to go to Newcastle to be the number 1 at the Etihad?
I do sympathise with Trafford. To be honest, I'm not sure that he was ever seen as a long-term successor to Ederson. Saying that, Newcastle signed Ramsdale and Pope continues between the sticks. So he very well may have ended up in a similar situation, albeit at Newcastle. Listen, I, as I said at the time, I understand, Eddie, how wanting to sign a goalkeeper, all 3 keepers on their books are well over 30 or over 30. So you understand him wanting to bring somebody younger in, but he may very well have been in the same position.
Xhaka, I have a question for you. I had this weekend, I was with Peter Schmeichel. We did the Anfield game. And we were talking a lot about the goalkeepers that, in the theory, you could say when Enrique said, I don't want Donnarumma because he's not good enough with his feet. But maybe now, and then he goes to Manchester City, who likes to have that playing goalkeeper. But maybe we come to a time now that it should be fashion again, that the goalkeeper should be good with their hands. That they should not only do training with their feet. Maybe Pep Guardiola has come to the stage now. He said, just give me a goalkeeper, stop people scoring against us. Forget it. Could it be that Pep thinking like that?
I want to think so. The trouble is, and we had this discussion on the show yesterday, Pep showed no real signs of changing his style, certainly from last season and some of the issues that they had last season. So you wonder if it's going to be similar in terms of a goalkeeper, but you don't sign Donnarumma if you're expecting a shot-stopping Ederson, for argument's sake. He's a better shot-stopper, but he's not going to be good with his feet. So I think a lot has to change about City in that regard, at the very least.
It's a bit like Arsenal, isn't it? We talked about them in the show. I mean, you're talking about getting back to basics, Jan, about, are you a good goalkeeper? Can you command your box? And if it comes to it, you can always well it up the field. And it's a bit like Arsenal. We were talking about them getting back to, getting down to what they do well on the field and not have this constant conversation that we seem to have every week about, their set pieces and how effective they are and how they do this and how they block. And it kind of feels that we've just talked about that and sometimes they focus on that a little bit rather than focus on what they're actually and have been very good at is playing the game at a good pace.
Robbo, next question for you. What's more likely to happen this season? Arsenal to win the Premier League or Barcelona to win the Champions League?
That's a tough one. I think that Arsenal have got more chance of winning the Premier League. They had a bit of a blip at the weekend. If they get their intensity right when they've got the ball, as much as they do when they're defending, I think they've got every chance of challenging Liverpool and Man City and Chelsea and whoever else want to challenge for the Premier League. Barcelona, I'm just a little bit worried about their high offside line, as we talked about on the show. It cannot work all the time because they're not doing it particularly well, and other teams are seeing how they can break it down. And the better the teams will become in the Champions League, the more problems they're going to have. So it's Arsenal for me.
I listened to that discussion you had on the show about the high offside line on Barcelona. Don't you think that Levante they don't care? We can beat them to do it the easy way. We chip the ball over, we take deep runs. But the Real Madrid of this world, or the Bayern Munich of this world, they don't think they can play that primitive against them. Maybe it's easier for these small teams to do it, that the proudness of a Real Madrid and Bayern will avoid them playing like they should, more efficient against Barcelona. It's just a theory.
Yeah, when in the Champions League, if Bayern had taken their chances in that first half when they got back into the game, Bayern found a way to break it down, and they had chance after chance after chance, which they didn't take. And then Barcelona in the second half went and scored another 2 or 3 goals. But Bayern found a way. They just didn't take their chances. For some reason, in the second half, they didn't continue that.
All right, lads, we're not
doing it. Will certainly break Barcelona down.
All right, lads, we're not doing the show all over again.
Cool fries.
He's trying to get his own back now. He's trying to get his own back.
No, I'm just saying, you know, happy for you two to have this conversation on a telephone after the show.
I am on the telephone.
Very happy for that to happen. I can facilitate it.
All right, well, that's it. Thank you, everyone, for your questions, for sending them in as well.
Oh, that was short.
That was short.
Yeah, I'm not sure I like that.
Today.